Okay, I think let's get started. So, hello everyone. So, welcome back to our, the weekly CERIAS seminar. And today I am very happy actually to introduce actually the Professor Tu. He is actually a professor in the Michigan State University. He actually is expert in mobile network security. And in the past 10 years, he has done his research from 4G security, of course, right now to 5G security. So today, he has a lot of actually, the very exciting work. It mainly shows actually the real attacks actually in the commercial, actually the US network like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and shows actually we are unfortunately we are vulnerable to a lot of actual threat and attacks. Of course, they also give us the solution and the recommendation to this operator, which kind of actually secured our today's network from millions of the people, okay? And I think today he's going to talk about actually his research about how to secure mobile networks. So I will give the turn to Professor Tu. So Scott, are you ready?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I'm an professor. Okay. I'm assistant professor at the Michigan State University, and I have actually I had a professor Pong graduated from the same research lab at the UCLA, and we have been working in this primarily in the research area, mobile network security, for many years. Yeah, we together discovered lots of interesting security vulnerabilities and findings, and we also closely collaborated with operators and device manufacturers such as Google, and we work together and help them fix lots of vulnerabilities. Now, in today's talk, I want to share with you some of my research experience, how we identify those real world security threats, and how can we deal with that. Okay. So today's talk, the title is Enabling a Practically Secure Mobile Network System. Okay. So the world has been mobilized in 2021, and mobile networks have connected more than 15 billion mobile devices. Okay, provided the 5.3 billion users with ubiquitous emerging mobile services, including like the ultra reliable, ultra latency communication, industrial IoT communication, and the virtual reality. However, it never be an easy task to secure operational mobile networks. They come with some reasons. First of all, the cellular network is typical. Indeed a complicated system. It's supposed usually compress more than the tens of network functions or elements and support more than 30 different protocols. And the most challenging part is, in operational networks, usually you need to simultaneously support multiple generations of mobile networks. For example, an AT&T user, you can freely switch between the 3G UMTS, 4G LTE, and the 5G NR new radio without terminating your ongoing services, such as your voice, data, and text services. Okay. However, the problem is that in the different generations of the mobile networks, their security mechanism and the services vary a lot. Okay. For example, in the 3G UMTS, they only support the circuit switch based voice and the text services. However, in the 5G and the 4G, they support a circuit packet switch based voice and the text services. Here is an example. Basically, yeah, you may think that this network architecture is sort of complicated, but actually it's a reality. Actually, in AT&T, for example, in AT&T Verizon, they support both 3G, 4G, and the 5G networks. So they allow their user can switch between the multiple generations of mobile networks, which means that if there are any vulnerabilities in a particular component, they can threaten all the mobile users, no matter you are using the 4G or 5G. It doesn't matter. Even the network element in the 3G has some problem, they can threaten the 5G user because you can switch between the multiple generations of mobile networks. So yeah, we can see because the operational cellular network is a complicated system. So basically, it's technically challenging to discover all the possible secure vulnerabilities in this the hybrid networks, which means they support multiple generations of mobile networks. No matter we are using the formal methods or using the empirical approaches, it's not easy to do so. So our approach is that we take a service-oriented approach. We try to study the insecurity of essential mobile services such as voice, text, data, IoT, or emergency services. Our goal is to identify the practical security threats against the mobile ecosystem, not limited to the mobile users only, but also the mobile operators and applications rely on the mobile systems. And our attacks our attack were not limited to for example, at the vessel you must be the nearby the victim. Actually, in our words, our attacks can be used to launch remote attacks against the mobile users. Yeah, I'll provide more details later. Yeah, using this approach in the last 10 years, and we have discovered lots of interesting security vulnerabilities in the different services, including the IoT service, voice test, and the data services. In the IoT service security, we find at the adversary they can remotely discover the IP addresses and the phone numbers assigned to the massive cellular IoT devices. Since those massive cellular IoT devices only subscribe to a small amount of data, so if their IP addresses and the phone numbers can be identified by an adversary, they will suffer from the denial of service attack because the adversary can send a spamming packet to those IoT devices and consume their subscriber data amount quickly. And in the voice service, we find by a given phone number, an adversary can remotely launch either data DOS attack or voice denial of service attacks. And even more threatening, and an adversary can obtain the free data services and also launch overbidding attacks against any mobile devices. Yeah, and in the test security service, we find an adversary can donate money on behalf of the victim without their prior consent. And they can help you to they can hijack your Facebook account without your username and password. So yeah, in the data security, we find an adversary can remotely increase the victim's monthly bill to a large extent, and the victims will be totally unaware of those attacks. Victim, you need to pay for those unwanted packets that you never received. And yeah, so due to the time limitations in today's talk, I will mainly introduce our work in the category of voice service security. Yeah, why I choose the voice service security in today's talk, the reason is actually it is a real security threat. The reason is that for all the smartphones, not limited to smartphones, for all the mobile phones, they have a pre-installed cellular network voice services. If you don't, you cannot obtain the 3GPP certification, which means you cannot be on the market. Which means if there are any vulnerabilities in the cellular network voice services, they can lead to a devastating consequence on global scale. More than billion mobile users will suffer from these attacks. So that's why I choose this the topic in today's talk. Yeah, let's go to the mobile network voice service security. So before I introduce the interesting findings we discover, I'd like to share the one deep ingrained design principle. You can find this design principle in all generations of mobile networks. Let's voice first. Yes, you are right. It's voice first. It's never be the data first. You can find this design principle in all the generations of mobile networks. Which, yeah, from the first generation to the fifth generation. Yeah, it does not come without any good reason. Because in the first generation of a mobile network, it's designed to provide users with ubiquitous voice services. So his goal is to provide the user with a carrier-grade voice quality. To achieve this goal, you can find there's nothing that cannot be sacrificed. Okay, in the following couple of slides, I can provide you the 3 examples. You can see what I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah, this table is the QoS, the QoS classifier identifier for all the services. For example, like data, voice, vehicle to vehicle communication, vehicle to everything, push to talk. Okay. They will define the priority levels for all kinds of services in the cellular networks. Okay, let's take where the voice is. This is our voice packet. It's assigned priority of 2. Lower value means a higher priority. Okay, the highest priority is 1. Okay, the lowest is 2. Sorry, the second highest is 2. Okay, and here is a voice signaling message. To transmit the voice signaling message, his priority is assigned 1, which means the highest priority in the cellular network. Compared with the voice packet and the voice signal, where is our internet traffic? Our internet traffic is right here. It will be assigned priority ranges from 8 to 9, which is much lower than the voice packet and the voice signal is. Which means that if we only have limited resources, and all the limited resources will be used to serve our voice packet and the voice signaling rather than our internet traffic. So that's why I say, okay, the cellular network is always a voice first network rather than data first. Okay, yeah, of course, different people may have different opinions, but here is the QoS classifier identifier table. You can take a look at this table. Okay, and the next example is that, okay, in the 4G and the 5G networks, all the voice services are provided over the IP, which means that we leverage the SIP, Session Initiation Protocol, to provide the user with the voice services. Okay, before I'm explain what the reserve resources before running means, let me introduce the non-cellular SIP code flow first. Yeah, this is a non-cellular SIP code flow. We can see this code flow from internet is pretty common. Okay, Alex tried to call Bob. Alex was sent invite to the SIP server, and the SIP server was sent 100 trying back to the Alex say, okay, I will help you to find where the Bob is. Okay, after the SIP server find Bob where Bob is, and the SIP server will forward the SIP invite to Bob. Then Bob's phone rings. Okay, then Bob will send a 180 running back to the Alice. After Alice receives a 180 running, and the Alice phone will play alerting tone. Okay, then after Bob answers the call, and the Bob's device will send a 200 OK, which means answers back to the Alice. Then these two guys can have their voice conversation. And after the call is finished, okay, Alice can send a bye to the Bob, and the Bob send 200 OK back to the Alice. Now let's take a look at how the 4G and the 5G network modify this non-cellular SIP code flow. Yeah. So I already highlighted the modification using the blue color. Okay, then we can see after the Bob receives a SIP invite, he will send his phone does not start to ring. Instead, his phone send a 183 session progress back to the Alice. Actually, in the SIP invite, the caller will specify the supported audio codecs in the SIP invite. Then calling, you need to select one from those codecs, right? So in the 183 session progress, the Bob will specify the selected audio codec. The selected codec represent the QoS. Okay, for example, like the uplink and the downlink bandwidth. For example, they may require the 30 kbps. Okay, then the SIP session progress message will be sent to the Alice. Then Alice will based on the selected audio codec and go to reserve resources. Okay, after the resource has been reserved, and Alice will send a provisional egg, PR egg, back to the Bob. Okay, after Bob finished the resource reservation and received the provisional egg from the Alice, the Bob's phone starts to ring, which means before caller's phone rings, all the resources required for this call conversation have been reserved. Okay, so this is something the cellular networks did additionally to protect to provide a user with a carrier grade, voice quality. We make sure all the resources have been reserved, then we make the corresponding read. Then the third example is that, if there is an inter-system handover, the user switch from the 4G to 3G or switch from 3G to 4G. When this inter-system occurred, the voice services will be always resumed first. Will be earlier than the data services. Yeah, here is example. We assume we have the two ongoing voice and the data services session. Then we suffer from then we experience an inter-system switch from the 4G to the 5G. From the 4G to the 3G. Then we can find the voice service is available much earlier than the data service. So which means that, we can see by these three examples, we can see cellular networks actually indeed a voice first network. It's not a data first network. Yeah, we can see the many designs, they can reflect the such design principle. Now it may be interesting why I need to introduce this design principle. Let me tell you, by leveraging this simple design principle, we already discovered lots of interesting vulnerabilities. Let me introduce it one by one. Yeah, here are the list of the voice solutions in the 4G and 5G. Let me introduce the first. In the 4G LTE, there are three voice solutions. First is a circuit switch fallback, CSFB. The circuit switch fallback means that for a 4G user, when you try to access the voice services, you will be switched back to a legacy 3G system first. Then you access the 3G circuit switch voice services. After your circuit switch code is finished, you'll be switched back to the 4G system. This is how the sys fallback works. Then in the 4G LTE also support VoLTE services, voice over LTE. To support, actually, voice over LTE is similar to the voice over the IP. The operator deployed the IMS IP multimedia subsystem in his core network. The IMS system comprise lot of the SIP servers and the signaling the gateway. They can convert the SIP signal into the the ISAP. The signaling message used in the telephoning networks. By the IMS, when the 4G VoLTE user access the voice services, they will not be switched to the 3G system. They can directly use the voice services in the 4G network. And for the 4G user, they can also use a voice over the Wi-Fi. Yeah, which means that you can access your the cellular network voice services through the public or private Wi-Fi. The SIP server are still those in the IMS system, IP multimedia subsystem deployed by operator. You still share the same SIP servers with the VoLTE server, with the VoLTE users. However, you access them through the public Wi-Fi or private Wi-Fi. And in the 5G new radio, it supports three voice solutions. EPS fallback. EPS stands for Involved Packet System. So the idea is that it's similar to the sys fallback. Basically, it's used for those non-standalone 5G deployment. Non-standalone 5G deployment means that operators do not deploy the 5G core network, still rely on the 4G core network. Operator only deploy the 5G base stations. And for such operator, when their 5G user try to access voice services, those users will be switched to the 4G system first. Then they can access the VoLTE services in the 4G. And after they finish the voice services, they will be switched back to the 5G system. Similar to the CS fallback. And the VONR, voice over the new radio, is for the standalone 5G deployment, which means the operator deploy the 5G core network and also deploy the IMS IP multimedia subsystem. So that for the voice NR user, when they access the voice services, they will not be switched to the 4G system. They can just stay in the 5G and access their voice services. Yeah, the 5G user, they can also use the voice over the Wi-Fi. Okay. Now, our finding shows actually for almost all the voice solutions, we can launch the attacks against it. For the 4G CS fallback, by giving a phone number, we can launch the data denial service attack. We can suffocate your data services. And then for voice services, okay, user, we can launch the data or voice denial service attack. Then the user can take advantage of operators. They can obtain a free data service with the highest service priority in the cellular network. They can launch overbilling attack, which means, okay, by a given, okay, the IP address of the mobile device, and the adversary can increase his, okay, monthly bill to a large extent, and the adversary don't need to pay for those, okay, data spent. If you are using the, okay, voice, okay, over the Wi-Fi, you are suffering from the voice DOS attacks, okay, and yeah. In the 5G and now we currently are verifying, okay, the voice denial service attack for the voice over the new radio users, okay, and we already verified the voice denial service attack can be applied to the, okay, the 5G user when using the voice over Wi-Fi. Okay. So in the following slides, and I will introduce how we make it. Okay. So this is the incoming call flow for the 4G CS fallback user. Okay. Yeah, when the let me see. Okay. When it's coming call to the CS fallback user, the call request will be sent to the 3G CS, okay, gateway first. Then 3G CS gateway will send a paging request to 4G MME. 4G MME is is responsible for, okay, authenticating the users and manage user location and manage layer, okay, session management, including like the QoS, obtain IP address. Okay, so the 4G MME, after he received a paging request from the 3G CS gateway, the 4G MME will send a paging request to the 4G CS fallback user. And he will specify why the reason why I need to page you. The reason is, okay, there's incoming CS code. Then the user, you will send the extended service request back to the 4G MME. Then 4G MME will send the initial UE context set up to the 4G base station. Then 4G base station will switch the user from the 4G to the 3G system. After the user connect to the 3G base station, the user will send a paging response to the 3G circuit switch gateway. Then you go to establish your CS code. After that, you perform the packet switch handover execution, which means we establish CS code after the user switch to the 3G system. He will establish CS code first, earlier than, okay, the resume layer, okay, his the data services. Okay, then after the call is finished, and after the Alice receives the call release, he'll be switched to the 4G system. Now let's take a look at how the code affected the data. So we can see the data suspension will occur at the inter-system switch between the 4G and the 3G. Yeah, we can see there are two data suspension here. Each data suspension will last for a few seconds. Yeah, why? The reason is that, okay, the device will establish the CS code first, then they go to resume their data services. So that's why we can see there are some, okay, there's some data suspension, they occur when the inter-system handover occurs. Now, the idea is, okay, if we know inter-system switch can lead to data suspension, can an adversary, okay, keep a dying code to the victim and hand out the code immediately, so that we can make the victim switch between the 3G and the 4G system back and forth, right? Ideally, we can do that. Okay, We just keep dialing the code and hand out the code, and the user will switch back between the 3G and the 4G system back and forth. Then our experimental results show, okay, the vector the TCP throughput can be reduced from the 30 megabit per second to almost 0 within the 75 seconds. Okay. Now you may wondering, okay, if adversary, okay, keep dialing the code to the victims, we can definitely be aware of this attack, right? Because victim's phone will play the ringing tone, right? So if the victim suffer from this attack, the victim definitely aware of this attack, right? So the next step is we need to upgrade the data DOS attack to the silent data DOS attack, which means we will prevent the victim's phone from ringing. How can we make it? The idea is we can leverage the VoLTE and cancel the code before the provisional app is sent. What does it mean? Before I introduce how we make it, let me introduce how a normal VoLTE user dial the code to the CS4 user. Maybe that. Okay. So the Alex sent a SIP invite to his SIP server. His SIP server will send a SIP invite to a signaling gateway. The signaling gateway will convert a SIP invite into the ISUB message, which is IAM. IAM stands for Initial Address Message. To receive this IAM message, the bulb must be switched to the 3G system so that they can receive this code request. Okay. Then the signaling gateway will send a 183 session progress back to the Alice. Then after Alice receives this message, Alice will reserve resources. And after resource reservation is completed, and Alice will send a provision egg to the signaling gateway. The signaling gateway will send a continuity message to the bulb. Then bulb's phone can play the ringing tone. Okay, so this is for the normal procedure how the VoLTE user call a CS4 user. So what if we can cancel the code before the provisional egg is sent to the signaling gateway? Then victim's phone will never play the ringing tone. Okay, we cancel the code and the signal gateway was then released to the bulb, and the bulb will switch back to the 4G system. So that's why we are able to upgrade the data denial service attack to the silent one. And the next, I would like to introduce some interesting finding we discovered from the 4G VoLTE services. Actually, as what I introduced previously, and in the 4G VoLTE, operator deploy the IP multimedia subsystem in their core network. So you can see there are lots of the CSCF. CSCF stands for core session control function. You can consider them as the SIP servers. There's just lots of SIP servers. Okay, and we also have some the signaling gateway like MGCF. They can help us to convert the SIP message into the ISUB message, which is a signaling protocol used in the telephony networks. They can also convert our RTP voice packet into the voice traffic that can be transmitted over a telephony network. Okay. The IMS domain, the IMS IP multimedia subsystem not only provide users with the voice services, but also provide them with like video call and the text over the IP services, which means that you can send a text to other people through the IMS. Now I'd like to highlight some differences between the traditional circuit search voice services and the packet search based one, which means IMS based services. The 4G LTE actually provide adversary with a larger attack service. Why? In the legacy 1, 2, 3, third generation circuit switch service, voice services, all operations will be performed on the hardware modem, which means you can only provide a hardware modem with a correct phone number, and all the remaining things will be handled by the hardware modem. You cannot do anything. You don't need to send any. You don't need to send any signal message to the infrastructure. All the hardware modem on the phone will help you take care of everything. However, in the 4G LTE, thing has been changed. Most operations are handled by the software on the phone rather than hardware modem. Why? The reason is that IMS is not only is not designed to provide the voice or text code or text service only. It can support rich multimedia services. If operator can collaborate with third parties, they can deploy their own multimedia services. If they want to deploy new services, they cannot modify hardware modem, right? Which means the hardware modem cannot provide sufficient flexibility for operators to support a new emerging multimedia services. So in the 4G LTE, the most operation has been performed by software on the phone. Another difference is that the EPS barrier is created for the VoLTE signaling. Why is a EPS barrier? Here is the simplified the 4G LTE networks. We can see there is a phone, and there is a base station. Then we have the serving gateway and we have a PDN gateway. You can consider the serving gateway and the P gateway as the internet routers. The user's packet will be routed to the base station, and the base station will forward to the S gateway. S gateway will forward to the P gateway, and the P gateway can forward the data to either internet or IMS. And the EPS barrier is a routing path between the UE and the P gateway. The EPS barrier consists of 3 barriers. One, radio barrier between the phone and the base station. Second, S1 barrier between the base station and the S gateway. And the third is the S5 barrier between the S gateway and the P gateway. The one EPS barrier will be assigned an IP address and associated with the QoS. For example, like the VoLTE signaling barrier will be assigned highest serving priority in the cellular networks. Now you may think, it's sort of difficult to understand. That's fine. Let's take a look at it from the phone perspective. From our phone, there is an IMS application. They can help us to establish the VoLTE code with the operator. And on our smartphone, we can have 2 network interfaces, IMNet1 and IMNet0. IMNet1 is reserved for the VoLTE services, which means they can provide IMS application to communicate with the IMS server. The other network interface is reserved for the data. When the user try to access the internet, all the traffic will be transmitted over the data interface. Then we also find there is access control deployed on the operating system. We find phone will actually transmit the packet destined to the IMS server using the VoLTE interface, which means if your packet are routed to the IMS server, you can use the VoLTE interface. Otherwise, your packet will be routed through the data network interface. However, we discovered 2 vulnerabilities on our phone. First one is with the root privilege. This software-based access control can be easily compromised. We just need to modify the routing table on our operating system. We can manually add the host on internet to the routing table so that we are able to transmit the packet to the host on internet using the VoLTE signaling interface. And the second vulnerability is that we find, our hardware modem do not deploy any additional access control. So which means that by leveraging these 2 vulnerabilities, at the browser, you can transmit the data to any host through the VoLTE signaling interface on our phone. And the next vulnerability we discover from the infrastructure, actually we discover from the AT&T and the Verizon, we find that they do not, they have their access control is imprudent, which means that they allow the adversary, they can communicate with another device, mobile devices over another host on the internet through the VoLTE signaling barrier. And on AT&T, they support the mobile to internet communication and mobile to mobile communication. On Verizon, they support a mobile to mobile communication, including a VoLTE to the VoLTE and the VoLTE to the data. So I mentioned earlier, for VoLTE code, for VoLTE phone, they support 2 interfaces, right? One is for VoLTE, the other is for data service. And we find on both AT&T and Verizon, if they support a mobile-to-mobile communication, you can communicate with another mobile device through his VoLTE interface and his data interface. Okay. Based on these three vulnerabilities, then we can devise lots of interesting attacks. First one is we can obtain the free data service from operators. Why? The reason is that in the current practice, okay, the voice service will be only charged by the time duration of voice call rather than data volume, which means that if the call is never been established, we don't need to pay for that. Okay, not just in the United States, in many countries, this is a common practice. So which means that we don't need to pay for the voice signaling messages. Okay, they'll be free of charge. Okay, so we find if we are able to transmit the data through the VoLTE signal barrier, and all the service will be free. And another good thing is, not good thing for operator, but another good thing for adversary is our traffic will be assigned highest serving priority in the cellular networks. Okay, we do not observe any limitation on the volume, throughput, or duration for the free data service. And another attack variant is overbidding attack. Yeah, we can leverage the mobile-to-mobile communication, especially for the VoLTE to the data. At the adversary, we can transmit a large number of unwanted data to the victim. Then we can bypass operators' net and the firewall protection. Operators' net and the firewall protection are used to prevent unsolicited data spent from internet. Right? If the mobile user didn't send a packet to internet first, they will not receive any incoming packets. Okay. However, by leveraging this attack, we can bypass this firewall protection. It's because this attack is launched inside of the cellular network rather than outside of the cellular network. Okay. As the adversary, we don't need to pay for those sent data spent. However, victim, you need to pay for that because you receive those unwanted packets through your data interface. Okay. So you need to pay for those spent. Yeah, another attack variant is a data denial of service attacks. Okay, so idea is that we can exploit in the mobile-to-mobile communication, but in this time we leverage a VoLTE to VoLTE communication, which means that we transmit unwanted data to victims' VoLTE interface. Okay, victim, you don't need to pay for that, but you will use all of your resources to receive unwanted packet because the VoLTE signal is assigned high serving priority. If the victim device only have a limited resources and he need to receive a lot of packet, he can only spend off his resource receiving the unwanted VoLTE signaling message because VoLTE signal message is assigned high serving priority. Okay, so in this attack we can find after the adversary start to send the unwanted VoLTE spend to the victim, and the victim data service, its throughput is reduced to 0 in a short time. And the next I like to introduce, this attack can be applied to the both VoLTE services and both VoLTE users and the voice over Wi-Fi users. We call it a cold DOS attack. So the goal of this attack is to prevent victims from receiving any incoming calls. How can we make it? So basically, we try to abuse the reliability of provisional responses in the SIP call flow. What are the provisional responses? Actually, in the SIP call flow, there are two types of the responses. One is a final response. Final response is, for example, the edit send SIP, edit send invite to the Bob. The final response will be 200 OK after the Bob answers the call. Okay, 200 OK is a final response to the SIP invite. The other type of response is provisional response. They are used to provide another community party with some updates. For example, the progress of the SIP call establishment, right? And for some important provisional response, we need to guarantee the delivery, of the provisional response success, right? So according to standard, to deliver those to reliably deliver the provisional response to another side. Once recipient receive a provisional response, important provisional response, they need to send a provisional acknowledgement back to the sender. Okay, if the sender does not receive an acknowledgement, the sender will keep resending the provisional response until he receives the acknowledgement or maxima of retransmission reached. Okay, so according to standard, 180 session progress is the important provisional response, which means on receipt of 183 session progress, sender you need to reply the provision act to the caller. Otherwise, caller will keep resending the 183 session progress to the sender. Okay, so then we find this design will get the caller get stuck in a proceeding state. I send the session progress to the caller, but I didn't receive an acknowledgement back, right? And I will get stuck in a proceeding state. In this proceeding state, I cannot receive any incoming calls. Okay. Then so that we can develop a attack is that, okay. Then we can send a simple invite to the victim. And once, okay, sorry, okay. Let's go back to previous slide, okay. After the maximum number of the retransmission reaches, the IMS server, they will send the cancel to both caller and the callee. Okay, so the call has been canceled. Okay, so based on this design, we can develop an attack is that we can send a simple invite to the victim. Okay, then the victim will send the session progress back to us. Then we will not send any provisional act to the victim. So the victim will get stuck in the proceeding state. Then the victim cannot accept any incoming call. Okay. After we receive the cancel from the infrastructure, then we send another simple invite to the victim. And by launch this attack, we find each attack attempt can cause the 40-second to the 32-second call DOS duration. Yeah, the time vary with the different operators. Okay, because of the maxima, the number of maxima retransmission will vary with the different operators. Then our research show, okay, we can prevent a victim from receiving a call up to the 97% of the time. Okay, they will not receive, they are not able to receive any incoming calls. Okay, our world has been mobilized. Okay, to secure a mobilized world definitely require lots of interdisciplinary technologies, including the system, security, networking, and the AI. So I think if you are interested in this permitting and research area, yeah, I'm very happy to collaborate with you and see if we can make the world much better. Okay. Yeah, thank you for listening my talk. I'm very happy to take any questions from you.
Yeah, so hi all. So you can type your question in the Q&A. Scott, maybe I can go ahead. Let's wait for other question, but before that, when we wait, I'll ask you. So do you think this question, I think I kind of wonder, what this problem will be dispelled actually when 5G is widely used?
Yeah, actually, this probably will be broadly used. For example, like the voice DOS attack. Okay, they can apply to the old IMS-based voice because in the 5G, even the voice over the NR, they still leverage existing IMS system, right? So that we can launch this attack. Yeah, definitely can be applied to the VO NR. Yeah.
So you mean 5G currently didn't take any lessons you already disclosed actually in the 4G network?
Yeah, actually, we have reported our finding to the GSMA. GSMA also admitted there is a design problem. Yeah, but seems it's sort of too late. So it's not applied to the latest 5G release yet. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
So likely means the current standard maker is aware of the problem, but unfortunately, the recent effort haven't, or at least so far, we do not know if they have any plan to address this issue, because so far in the current 5G standard, we can still see the voice call in 5G are still suffer from this kind of attack exposed by you, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, because the 5G voice service and the 4G service, they still build on top of the IMS. Okay, if we are still using the same IMS design, and the same problem will be absorbed in the 5G. I do believe so. Yeah.
So do you think we actually should give up this kind of the voice calls provided by operator? Should we just go directly, because so far there are so many actual voice supported by data service, right? Like mobile broadband service.
Yes, yes. The sense that okay, as well introduced there is the deep ingrained design principle, voice first. The operator willing provide the layer voice service with a higher service priority. Yeah, so that they can help us to obtain a better voice quality. So if operator they are willing to provide those broadband voice services such as Skype or WhatsApp with a higher priority, I do believe they can have a similar performance like the VoLTE or the VON services. Yeah.
Then how it will impact, like not a smartphone, right? We go from smartphone to IoT device, and it doesn't make any change, right?
For the IoT, let me see. Basically, the IoT actually in the practice currently there are only the two cellular IoT broadly deployed cellular IoT technology. One is the LTM, the other is the narrowband IoT. LTM support both data, voice, and the text service, and the data and the voice service are supported by IMS. And for narrowband IoT, they only support the data service only. So which means the same problem will be applied to the LTM cellular IoT technology rather than the NB-IoT. Yeah. But in the 5G, okay, actually the 5G IoT standards may not fully finalized yet. People still discussing some features on the 5G IoT devices. But we still can see the voice service and the text service will be supported by a part of partial IoT technology, but not all of IoT technologies, 5G IoT technologies. Yeah.
And Scott, I think we have two more questions. So yes. One is from the Q&A. Can you say that, or you need me to read that for you? So I can actually ask one question about rich communication service. Can you say that?
Yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Okay.
So basically, the rich communication service actually, in addition to the, we can say the IMS-based short message is not considered a traditional text service because it's transmitted over the SIP. Okay, basically we can carry lots of multimedia. Okay, like video, picture. We can carry lots of the multimedia files there. Okay, so that so which means that okay, we can tell you. Okay, according to our experience, we didn't see lots of operational the rich communication service. Otherwise, we already studied the security of that. So the thing is that operator try to promote a layer rich communication service, but since it's not very promising, at least to the end users, so that you can see a lot of.
I think right now maybe you didn't say actually we use rich communication service to replace SMS, but I think that the student is asking, what do you think about the future? What's the vision about that? For example, 5 years later, or in the near future, right? Frozen future, do you think it will be the trend? Actually, with the traditional short message maybe traditional voice call will disappear, but the new service, like the rich communication service, will replace that. I think this is the first
Yeah,
stage.
I know what you mean, but my opinion is okay. Actually, yeah, we can say in the last 10 years, operators, the 3GPP try to promote a lot of the multimedia service, for example, like push to talk. Okay, but we didn't see any push to call services deployed in practice. Yeah, they can deploy that, and then we will see. Okay, basically the thing is that if we start see the
Scott.
yes.
So do you mean actually kind of this is actually there's a lot of the stakeholder, and then actually there's kind of a competitor. I think the different like some vendor operator may have different opinion from the big company like Google and Facebook of Meta or other company, right? The internet service provider may have the different view from these telecom vendors, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And he had also have another question is what do you think about the vendor cooperation is shaping up the mobile security landscape? Yeah, he has two questions.
You mean this question? Let me see.
Could you say, because I currently say, Akash has a question, and on a similar note, what do you think about the vendor cooperation is shaping up the mobile security landscape? Can you answer the question?
Cooperation is shaping up. Okay. Yeah. I think so, but in probably let me see. Yes. But actually, it depends on depends on vendors because we reported lots of issues to the different operators. They have different responses. Okay, some operator and the device vendor they are more willing to address the problems we report, but some just say, okay, that's not their problems. The end user you have to be responsible for those problems. Yeah, we indeed see the different attitudes. Yeah.
I see. Thank you. And there's one more question. Can you say that?
Okay, yeah, I can see it. Okay. Yeah, so basically we can discover lots of vulnerabilities from first of all, we discover the problems from the real service, operational services, because we try to identify the real threats. So we will pay more attention to those operational service. However, we still read a lot of the 3GPP standards. Then we can know why we can identify real root cause of the discovered vulnerabilities. Then we can further provide a solution to address the standard problems so that we can benefit all the mobile users and operators. Yeah, basically that's our research philosophy.
I think it's then also kind of, it's not a high level idea, it's more like a more concrete problem is how you reading start. For example, by reading tons of the 3GPP spec to figure out actually what's the possible vulnerability, or you actually already come up with attack and then look at the spec, try to answer that. Which one start first, maybe? So what's the source of this attack ideas?
Yeah, you can just discover the operational service first. Then you go to study his standards. You can study a GSMA standard first because GSMA will stipulate all the regulation for operational services. Then you can see, then after you read the standard, you can know what are the potential problems you probably can find from operational service. Then you conduct experiments. So basically, we conduct the standard guide experiments. We will not just simply run the 1,000 experiments. Yeah, we will read the standard first. Then we know where the possible issues. Then where are the possible issues? Then we conduct a validation experiments. Yeah.
And the ending question, no more. If there's any other question, okay. If no more question, I think the timing current is perfect. And thank you for everybody for coming to today's the seminar talk. And Scott, thank you very much for giving us a talk.
Yeah, thank you.
And just for all of us, let you know that this is actually the next week will be our last seminar talk of this semester. So, and I hope to see you next Wednesday. And have a nice week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.